agentic AI, where you have these agents that are kind of training and building themselves and running things independently. I think it's going to displace millions of jobs.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome to another episode of Test, Optimize, and Scale that's very unique. Not only is it episode 200, we've been waiting for this discussion, bringing Tim Martinez, my partner here at DNA, COO, started the agency together. I've known Tim for much longer, though. He's a consultant. He works with founders. He pushes them to their limit and is an entrepreneur in many capacities. Going to be talking to you about books he wrote, going to be talking to you about stories with CEOs that allowed them to scale. I could tell you he's a daily inspiration to me, and looking forward to bring that wisdom to today's discussion. Tim, thanks for taking the time to hop on the pod here.
Excited to be here. I hear it's coming up on a large episode number, a hallmark number. Am I correct? Am I allowed to say what number this is?
200. You're loud.
Congratulations. That's a feat.
You hear about the stats of how many podcasters don't make it past 6, don't make it past 30. You start getting a lot more spam once you hit 100, 150. Every day someone's sending me a LinkedIn message or an email. But the audience growth really ramps up at that point. So it's been a fun journey. I've got a stack of notebooks here in front of me. I'm learning every week from these discussions.
Well, I'm honored to be 200.
You were a circled name on a whiteboard. We said, this is the one, Tim. Crossed off Neil Patel, crossed off these other guys. Tim.
Zuckerberg.
So, Tim, I met you in 2009. You were leading a workshop at ASR, Action Sports Retail, a conference down in San Diego. 50 ways to promote your business. I said, hey, I should probably check into, one of these speaking rooms. I should see something going on there at some point, not just be on the trade show floor. This sounds like the one. I talked to you afterwards, found out we were both in Hollywood. Remember the first question you asked me, which was, how old are you?
Sounds like me.
It was it was jarring. No, I remember it. And then we met up for coffee in Hollywood and started finding ways to collaborate back then. So I have this long storyline of who you are, but let me ask you to kick off the conversation. Familiarize the audience. Who are you? What is your story?
That is so existential. Okay, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. So for those that don't know me, my name's Tim. All I've ever done is get my hands on businesses. The kid with the lemonade stand. If I could find something to buy and sell it for a little more than I bought it, I was doing that. Whether it was skateboards, t-shirts, I was a DJ, anything I could do to make a buck. I never thought about it as entrepreneurship. I just thought about it as I need to buy another skateboard, or I need to take my girlfriend out and need some money for the movies and popcorn. Like, how do I come up with a few bucks? I wasn't deep in, education. I didn't go to college and do all that kind of stuff. Just the school of the streets, the school of hard knocks, just figuring it out. And I didn't have a whole lot of guidance in that regard. I didn't have a whole lot of mentors, but I just had a lot of fun. And all my friends were starting stuff, and I was starting businesses, and one thing led to another. And had a marketing agency and had a coffee business, a DJ business, apparel stores. And I got lucky and sold a couple of those little businesses. I didn't know even about mergers and acquisitions. It wasn't there yet. But I just did my thing probably up until the time I was about 23, 24, or somewhere in that ballpark. And then people started asking me, how are you doing this? Can you help me start my business? And I'd always written my own business plans. I was always very good at writing business plans. I would actually go to SCORE, Senior Council for Retired Executives, still in existence today. I learned about them because they were a free resource. I lived in Glendale at the time, and someone said, hey, there's a group of old timers that were old former executives that just take your business plans to them for free, and they'll just give you advice. So I would go there all the time. And I became very friendly with these guys. They would tell me why my business plan sucked or what was great about them. So when people started asking me for advice, I said, well, look, I could write your business plan for you. Well, helping people write their business plans led to them raising some capital. And then they say, great, now we have some money. What do we do? My uncle just gave me $100,000. Help. And I was like, all right, well, you need manufacturing and sourcing and marketing. You need to hire, you need to set up QuickBooks and set up you're like all that stuff. And I just got involved in, I guess, quote unquote, consulting. So I went to the library, bought a book called How to Start a Consulting Business. I had a CD-ROM in the back of it with rooms and all this stuff. It was about this thick. And I just sat there and highlighted the whole thing And I said, okay, cool. I'm just going to consult and try to make as much money. Well, that was like 20 something years ago. I think it was like 2005 or something when I really like got the DBA set up. So one client has just led to the next client. It's been a beautiful, amazing journey. Along the road, I started working with small mom and pop local businesses. And then that eventually grew to working with global organizations that have, massive footprints, $1 billion in revenue. And that's kind of where I continue to do my thing. And along the journey, I meet wonderful entrepreneurs and co-founders and partners like yourself, and we just start something and we make that happen at the same time. So it's been really cool.
And you've had the opportunity to do it around verticals, products, uh, communities that you love. You were a professional skateboarder. People's eyes light up when I tell them that. You created a skate shop. You created a brand, not just around skateboarding, but around artists, around collaboratives, in areas of Los Angeles and that connected to the East Coast and here and there. A friend that you grew up with. You guys have had a business for over 20 years now and have an amazing pro skater lineup. And that was a passion project that you were able to keep going. I met you at ASR, 50 Ways to Promote Your Business. It was skate shop owners of all ages taking notes to your every word. And you were able to have that same type of consulting discussion with them of you need to be doing this. Here's a bunch of things you can roll out tomorrow. Otherwise, you're going to see revenue drop over time and have that impact. I've seen you work in entertainment. I've seen you work in AI. Later on, I guess, I've seen you work, senior living. I mean, you were able to give me the background around what excited you about each of these businesses. I remember watching you work on business plans and you'd have this light bulb moment where, it went from a client to you have to hear what these guys are doing. It's wild the way this model works. How do you find that excitement? How do you find that energy? How do you find that aha moment where you're able to see the vision of where a business can go?
Yeah. So when I take on a client, it is my fiduciary responsibility. At that moment, I take it on as a personal challenge. That's why I'm very, very careful and cautious with who I take on as clients. I mean,
Sure.
very, very cautious. And I take on clients that I think I can do something with. I think I can add some value to their journey, right? Maybe a small piece, maybe a big piece, but I don't take anything on that I just don't think I can really help. So if I'm buying into something because I'm trading some of my life units for their gain, right? We're meeting each other in the middle of some value, but I am trading in a portion of my life for this. It
Sure.
could be 2 weeks, 2 months, doesn't matter, but I'm trading my life. So it really be really committed. I then at that moment put on the CEO hat. And I'm like, I am now the CEO of this business. Every decision I would make for this business would be a decision I would make if it was my company. If I was spending my own hard-earned dollar, where would I put that dollar? I'm not going to make any recommendation outside of what I would personally do. So that ties me into thinking, what am I going to do? I just took on this client. We just got into this engagement. I have some commitment. Like I need to come with something. So I just start scrambling and looking all over the places for the light, looking for the light, looking for that flicker. And the second I find it, and I know there's something there, then I know we got something. And I go deep. And a lot of that, quite frankly, should be done in the discovery process before you even take on a client. But once you get the client, then you're like, okay, I'm going to go deeper and deeper and explore and take it to a place that we never thought. A lot of that comes from asking a lot of questions and just being intellectually curious, being an inquisitive individual and reading a lot and trying to pull resources and ideas from different places and ask the question like, how would Jack Welch do this? How would Sam Walton do this? How would Steve Jobs do this? If I was sitting here right now in front of Tony Robbins, he said, Tim, do this thing. He would say, what? Right. And I try to put myself in those shoes. That's where those light bulb moments go. And that's why I get so excited. I also am a big believer in kind of your purpose in life. Like, why did God create me? Like, what's the thing that God gave me? Like, what's my gift? And I think this is my gift to be used. I like to do a lot of things. I wasn't the greatest skateboarder, but I enjoyed it. But I had friends that was their gift. I had friends who were like, you were born like a fish in water to skate. But for me, communication, simplifying the complex, helping people have mini breakthroughs that lead to bigger breakthroughs, that was always something I was good at even as a kid. I was always having deeper conversations. So I love the process of finding that thing. And now that I work with much larger organizations, it's like, maybe that one little thing is we found someone on the org chart of, a 500-person org chart. We're like, that guy, that gal, they got something. That could be the thing. It doesn't always have to be so grand of like, oh, we're going to go buy this new company. We're going to, innovate this new technology. Sometimes it could just be something like, here's a little gap in the market, like equity crowdfunding, right? Or regulated investment crowdfunding, whatever. It could be just a little thing. When you find it, you're like, I'm gonna latch onto that and see how far we can take that thing. That even just me talking about it, I get excited and motivated about it. And I can feel my passion kind of like bubbling up that I love this work.
I remember you talking about a sales rep firm for fashion. And first you're taking it on, but then once you got into the numbers and how it distinguishes one apparel brand from the next, and what it means to have a successful trade show, and how you could stack those, the tonality, everything about how you spoke about that project, what was completely different. I remember social gaming startup we were both part of, and speaking with you about ARPU, average revenue per user. It's actually part of what got me so into advertising, because I was able to put a number, a measurement behind what ads actually do. And traffic coming in, 30% of a brand, a licensed audience joining the game, 5% of users making a purchase, average of $20 purchase per month, and actually spitting out the numbers. But there was an energy. It's like we were rooting for a sports team once we were looking at the equations afterwards and what was being produced. And I see you do it with much larger organizations today, and not just around capital raising, which is the common theme with early stage companies for years, but around mergers, around acquisition, definitely around growth. You were talking about some of your inspirations. I feel like you read, multiple books a month. You always have new quotes. I don't know if it's just a calendar where you got a quote of the day or something like that. But you're taking in different feeds of information. Who have been some of your biggest drivers, your biggest influences, those that have been able to add to your voice?
Yeah, I would say like Seth Godin. I've always been a huge fan of Seth. I latched onto he does a blog a day. So, I mean, just the sheer guts and courage it takes someone to write a blog a day. And he's been doing it for I don't know how many years, decades, maybe 20 years or so, maybe more. I actually saw him in Central Park at the same spot that you and I took a photo at. We were hanging out there a couple of weeks ago, and Seth just goes walking by. I'm like, Seth, go. I as a young man, I would read all the classics. I mean, if there's a business classic, the E-Myth, and even things that are far more classic than that. Earl Nightingale, these guys I grew up on that. My dad was always listening to Zig Ziglar and tapes in the car. And so I kind of grew up with motivation and books. My dad's a very avid reader. So if I go to his house, there's just a library full of books just stacked all the time. He's always recommending stuff to me. Peter Drucker, the classic management consultants, guys like Ogilvy and the classic advertising guys. Nowadays, a lot of times I go back to the classics. When I read a book, I always have my highlighter. Like my wife will tell you, I just have a highlighter with my book all the time. So I'm always just highlighting things. I go, wow, like it's a new shift. And I know a lot of people that they don't read physical books, but they listen to audiobooks. It doesn't really matter how you're getting the inputs, but I think a constant flow of inputs just shapes your mind for the day or in a different way. And a lot of that is being served now by YouTube. So I'm not, an elitist when it comes to you have to read books. It's just what I grew up with. I like the physical nature of having a book and having something in my backpack, or being on a plane, or being able to disconnect from the phone. And I like that thing. But I think it's very, very important. I tell my kids, you should always be working on a book. You should always have one book that you're always working on, whatever. So if I see that they don't have a book, I'll just give them a book. I had I think like the Arnold Schwarzenegger bio. It was actually really good. So I just had to give it to my kid because he didn't have something. So anything. Wherever I can draw inspiration from, politicians, or I like bios, Steve Jobs, the Elon book, whatever you think politically about him. Like, I just like getting into the stories and looking for those insights, because I look at it as I fill in my tank. It's kind of like that old analogy of like, you got to overflow. Well, you can't overflow if you're not getting something poured in. So you kind of got to pour in the cup so you can overflow it. Because then I wake up in the morning, I jump on calls with you, and it's like, all right, what's happening? I'm like, cool. I just read today about, classic HR structures or culture or policies or whatever. And I'm able to pour that into the business. because I was filling my tank with that versus me just constantly trying to pull from a very, very low well. So that's why.
I had a philosophy teacher that said reading gives your thoughts breath.
Mhm.
He went on to say writing gives your thoughts precision, reflection gives your thoughts depth. And that's always stuck with me. A Tim Martinez quote around that, which may or may not be you yourself, but those who lead read. And I have a shelf of books you've bought me. Seth Godin, I got Purple Cow. I mean that's going way back. Think and Grow Rich. One that I quote constantly that we both read, you reread right before starting DNA was the E Myth, as you mentioned, and working on the business versus working in the business. Guest a few weeks ago was talking about the baker. I'm like, E Myth? He's like, yeah. We were able to go into it from there, but it's got so many amazing fundamentals. I've said with consulting in the past, if I did nothing but quote the E Myth, I would be effective.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, the challenge of like persuasiveness because the system wants to break. There's like the spectrum of creativity and process. There's always the push and pull, and the creativity is pushing for innovation and wants to do all these cool, fancy things, and the process is kind of pulling it back and status quo, the inertia. So it's like the E Myth addresses like one side, but there's so many other books that talk about the balance between the two. And will there ever be balance? I don't know. I don't know if there'll ever be a perfect balance and a perfect system, but you kind of have to push towards nirvana as much as you can and say we at least need to have more infrastructure than we have today, more systems in place. Yeah.
It's like a muscle, a workout. It's never ending. You always have to put
And
more time into it. Uh, you stop thinking about it for a while, just go through the motions like you're starting over again. It's life, right? I mean, there's an endless journey. You've worked with thousands of founders, thousands of CEOs, hired CEOs, much larger organizations. DNA approaching our thousandth client. You've been doing this a lot longer and have had different individuals that you're working with all the way through. What are some of the common obstacles that you see? And not just, hey, these are thoughts, these are things that leaders experience, as much as the things that are actually holding people back, putting companies out of business that could be taking on more market share.
so I would say first and foremost, it's you got to keep your ego checked.
Mm.
Ego is a big one. So there's something called the Griner model, and it basically says that every step a business grows, to get to the next step, you need new thinking, new infrastructure, new resources, new capital, all these to get to the next level. And then you get to your next level and you need more and more and more systems, automations, how you're going to grow the whole bit. So typically what happens, there's about a $3 million wall for small businesses. And this is good for all the startups out there. And they typically hit the first $3 million wall and they never grow past it. And the reason they don't grow past it is because your most small business solo owner operator, you're like, maybe like quarter plus, it's good enough. Why do I want to take any extra risk? And you can stay stuck at that $3 million wall for 30 years. You can never change. You could be a carpet cleaning business and it's a family owned business. You do about $3 million a year. You have your small base of accounts. It's never going to grow. Well, you and I both know that there's challenges and obstacles and struggles every single day. So it's like what you did this year isn't guaranteed for next year. So the first thing I would say is get clear on how big you want to be. Not everyone needs to be a $30 million, $300 million, $3 billion company. If $3 million is good enough for you and you run a fabulous life and you can have all the traveling, awesome. Be clear about that. It's the rub when people consider themselves to be a $50 million company, but they just don't want to take the risks. And then they have anxiety and pain and they're not doing things. So I would say that'd be like the first one is like just understanding like who are you, your identity, your ego, like what do I want? What's good enough for me? Do you want to grow? Well, if you're going to grow and take this to the next level, then you have to start bringing in new resources, new thinking to get you to that next level. Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck. So that'd be the first part. The second part, I would say, where it's the common challenge is being disconnected from, I would say, the numbers. Like a lot of companies owners, like I'll meet with them and I'll just start asking them basic questions like, what's your EBITDA? What's your, average headcount or average revenue per employee, average revenue per customer, like all these different things. And sometimes we're like, well, we've just been kind of floating and meandering and, we're alive. We made some money at the end of the year, but they're very disconnected from like this map. I like to call it the money map. It's like the map will show you where you should go along the journey. So you got to get really, really close to numbers and know them. There's another thing that I call risk stacking, which you have to be clear because you mentioned like where companies fall apart. You Entrepreneurs are the eternal optimists.
Mm.
God bless us. God bless, this wonderful country and capitalism, the ability to create, but we are the eternal optimists. We don't think about the downside. 50% of all businesses are forced into an exit statistically. It
Mm.
means you have to sell your business because of some external factor. The 5 Ds, death, divorce, disease, dysfunction, and distance, are typically what pushes those factors into actuality. So you're like, somebody passes away, I now need to make a move. My wife is leaving me, I now need to make a move. I just found out I have terminal illness, I now need to make a move, right? Something's you're forced into this. So you have to be proactive with your exit planning, your ascension plan, your long-term roadmap, like ultimately what you want, what would happen if any of those situations were to happen. Because we're eternal optimists, we don't look at the risk. But if you stack risk, the risks always outweigh the upside because we can see here probably list 10 of them. I'll give you a couple. Cybersecurity risks, fraud, litigation, employee lawsuits, client lawsuits, technology that's coming rapidly taking out your industry. So we have to look at risks almost as a practice, as if we're looking at it every single month and just like, what are the risks that are facing us and how are we going to work against them? Because if you don't pay attention to the risk, you're just going to be, behind the times, behind the 8 ball, and then it's going to be too late by the time something occurs. People think they can run their business indefinitely, forever. You cannot run your business indefinitely. At some point, you have to get out. They say the way private companies go is one of two ways. You either close for business or you sell. You either close or you sell. That's the way of private companies. So it's like, great. What are you going to do? You're going to close? Or are you going to sell? What's the middle? You go public? Well, very few private companies actually ever get to that stage. So I'm not saying it's not you out there. I hope it is you. And maybe that's on your growth roadmap. You want to be $1 billion company plus. Awesome. Have at it. But it's just getting clear on your goals and who you are and what you're trying to achieve, and then communicating that out to your team so everybody gets enrolled in the process. So everyone knows like where we're headed and what mountain we're going to go take over, and then what their role in that whole process is. Those are like the common missteps and mishaps. It's just not underestimating the risk, not being tied to your numbers, not really knowing who you are and what you want with your identity and your ego, and kind of checking that at the door. I think the technical part of running a business is the easy part. I think that's the easy part. It's like, yeah, sales and marketing. It's not terribly complicated. Client acquisition, building funnels and delivering some service, not terribly complicated. This other stuff, this identity component, or what do we really want? That's the harder part to get around, because, and I'll end my little rant on this, which is most people don't want to succeed. They just don't want to fail. People would rather not fail than succeed. So when you say, oh, you have a really awesome $3 million company, let's 10x you. They're like, I'd rather just not fail. And I'm not failing right now. So let me just not fail. I don't want $30 million. I just don't want to fail. It's when we talk about exit planning. Oh, let us sell your company for X amount of multiples. They're like, I don't care about the multiples. I just don't want to be an employee of some new company where they're telling me what to do and then I failed. Or Uncle Sam took more than he should have and I failed. Like, people just don't want to fail. So it's not so much that they want to succeed. My job isn't necessarily to say, I'm going to help you succeed. My job is to help you not fail.
So almost human instinct, hierarchy of needs of, hey, failure, I have to worry. It's ingrained in us. And the risk tolerance doesn't allow for, hey, let me take it, 5x, 10x, because statistically that won't happen. It's a smaller percentage that get through. So what if it all crumbles? I've heard you mention, was it the 5 Ds? But it's it's funny how studied and clarified, broken out that actually is. But I like it. Know yourself, know your actual business, where you're going. It always amazes me how many people don't do the research, especially with all the tools available today. The factors, those 5 Ds that tear it apart, the identity. I like the technical versus the mental. Want to speak to that a bit. First of all, reminds me a lot of golf. Being on the golf course.
So much like
I got a double bogey. My round's done. When really you just need to keep pushing through. You get a birdie, a few pars afterwards. That double bogey doesn't matter. But if you act like the world's falling apart, you're not going to perform as well.
absolutely. Keep your head in the game.
Speaking about the mental, uh, as we were talking about on the past topic, it's a never ending game. How you position what's going on up here to be able to perform at optimal levels. Not everyone receives that coaching, that consulting, that outside voice very well. Sometimes there's resistance. Sometimes they want to explain why what they're doing is right, why their product's amazing, why their baby's amazing. As there's analogies made in the startup and overall entrepreneur space. What are some hindrances that founders, CEOs, C-suite executives have working with the consultant, working with the coach? How should they be looking at it to get the most results for them, to get the most out of it for their time, to be as outstanding as possible in comparison to other average, industry averages, other leaders, other people in their position?
Yeah. Okay. So I want to unpack a few things. If there was a pie chart and this pie chart has 3 slices of the pie, you'd have this very, very tiny sliver called the known. This is what you know. This is what Jason Fishman knows or Tim Martinez knows. It's a tiny sliver. This is a sliver. You have a bigger sliver, which is things you know that you don't know. Like, I know it's possible for me to birdie every hole. I just don't know exactly like what to do. And I know it's possible, but I just don't know, right? Then you have this massive universe of your pie called the unknown unknown. And that is where all your massive gains occur. That is where you have true exponentiality. So for example, we know we need a better CRM. I just don't know which one, right? The unknown unknown, where you hire an expert to come in and they say, did you know that CRMs are a thing of the past? Did you know you need an AI agent that is the new CRM and actually it could just do all that for you and they'll follow up on, and you're like, I didn't even know that was even possible. And did you know that you can get that at a fraction of the cost of a classic CRM? Did you know your competitors, not one of them are doing what we're recommending? I didn't even know that was possible. Exponentiality. So a good advisor will bring you some kind of exponentiality in that regard, in the unknown unknown. Then you're faced and confronted with a challenge. You're now confronted with, what do I do with this information? If I deem it to be true, do I take action on it? If you don't take action on it, well, I did my job. Right? No, or maybe part of my job is to persuade you and get you. Another thing I want to say is that there is a major difference between coaching and consulting. As a longtime consultant, the consultants, you get hired to go in and do the heavy clamp down. We're getting pulled in to tear apart organizations, do all the heavy lifting, all the technical side, as you were mentioning, due diligence, restructuring comp, acquisition roadmaps, integration plans. Like it's heavy, heavy work. The coach's job is to push you to do the things that you're capable of beyond your job, right? So you could say, look, let's hire some consultants, have them come in, do a top-down valuation, identify 10 companies for us to buy. They're going to give us some kind of document and tell us to do it. Cool. That's a great consultant. They did their job. But the coach would get into our heads. And the coach would, quite frankly, a great coach never gives you the answer. The best coaches, so anyone out there could be an expert coach if all you do is ask questions. The greatest coach is like, Jason, you already know what you need to do. You don't need me to tell you or even to point you in the direction. You need to challenge your thought and to ask you more questions that make you think in a way that you've never thought, so you can come to your own unknown unknowns and go, oh my goodness, yeah, you're absolutely right. I didn't even know that. And together we're going to get you somewhere. And then once we know where you should be headed as a coach, it would be great. Let's get an accountability plan together and make sure that you're doing the thing. Like I mentioned, I've been weightlifting, and my trainer, like every week will add like, 5 pounds or 2.5 pounds. And it's like the tiniest increment. You're like, it's like so hard just to pick it up. But it's like, I can see myself getting stronger every week. That's good coaching. Whereas consulting is a lot of times is very transactional in nature. And you need a good consulting team to come in and do the heavy clamp, but you also need coaching. So the greatest entrepreneurs that you and I both know and have read about, they always, always had their advisors. They always had their network, their board of advisors, their teams, their mentors, the sages, whoever it was. They have people in their corner, and they're always bringing in new people. One of my most successful clients runs a very successful organization. This guy hires consultants like it's candy, man. I mean, this guy he's always getting new perspectives. Like, yeah, bring him in. Let's hear what this guy has to say. Let's hear what that guy has to say. And he takes the best of what he hears, then he applies it, invests into it, company grows again. So kind of going back to one of the missteps of early stage entrepreneurs is they just don't do that. Maybe because they're under resourced, but it's really under resourcefulness. because you can find great resources everywhere. Go to SCORE like I did when I was a kid and just sit down with, they're still in existence, get free executive coaching. Push yourself to get to those levels. I don't know if I fully answered your question, but that's my take on the coaching, consulting, the technical side, and the strategic side.
I love the workout example that you provided. I remember doing the Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within, and he said, when does muscle growth occur on a set of 10 repetitions? It's rep 13, and it's your
Right.
coach pushing you through. And you could be cursing at the coach or whatever it is, but you're grateful afterwards. You're open to that training with your trainer, right? Not every CEO. Manager for that matter is. They want to again defend and do this and do that. I heard a profile broken out of founders that have a product designer background, and when they're trying to get investors, they're just continuing to sell the product again and again and again and again, even to a service provider, just how great the tech is. And it's hard to be able to break through the personality and be able to show, hey, you got to just trust us on this. You got to take these steps. You could change it up from there, but let's do these next actions, get it where it needs to go. You mentioned AI. I want to ask you one question about AI before getting into the test optimized scale recommendations. A lot of talk out there that there's an AI Tim, and just ask questions, wondering if this is the real Tim or the AI Tim at this point. But why AI? Where is this world going? What's possible with the world of artificial intelligence? How is it shaping the inspiration you're getting from reading on a daily basis? How is it changing up how you do research, how you speak with CEOs, how you're able to make projections and paint a picture on trajectory? What does AI look like here in 2025, and where is it going from here?
So it's still so new. It's like when we were early stage in blockchain and Web3 and all that, and everyone was an expert 10 years ago. And you're like, it's so new. Is anyone really an expert? And there's experts out there, but it's very exciting. I created Tim GPT. I just went to Chat GPT, uploaded 20 years of books I've written, workshops, courses, because I wanted to create something that felt like me when I spoke to it. I wanted me to talk to me. It's also my attempt to fire myself. So I am on a campaign to fire myself from any kind of knowledge work. Now, I think it was Drucker that coined the term knowledge work, maybe somewhere back in the management consulting days of the 50s or somewhere in that universe where, knowledge was the commodity. There's so much knowledge and information out there. I'm trying to move into what I consider wisdom work and out of knowledge work, wisdom work being the state of subtraction, deletion, first principles, kind of getting rid of all the noise. You don't really need more knowledge. You need more wisdom. You need to make smarter singularity choices. So if I'm trying to fire myself because I can't be better than Tim GPT, I then have to do something else that I'm good at, something that the GPTs can't, something that the agents can't do. I think the future, it's not scary, it's exciting, but I think the average bear is so far behind where they should be right now with testing all the tools. Like most people I run into the street, we should be having an in-depth conversation about at least 5 to 10 tools that they're testing at any given moment, whether it's spreadsheet AI tools or graphic design AI tools, video editing tools, copywriting tools, all that kind of stuff. Now you need smart people behind it to direct and guide, but with the agentic AI, where you have these agents that are kind of training and building themselves and running things independently, I think it's going to displace millions of jobs in the next probably 5 to 10 years. But I think millions of jobs are going to be gone in 10 years. Millions of jobs are gone. What will they be replaced with? Nobody really knows. How far will the AI agents go? The agentic AI, it's TBD. But I just know that, like, I could look at so many individual jobs right now and I go, I don't know why anyone would hire that anymore or why they wouldn't just replace that. And we looked at that with automation 5 years ago. We were trying to automate everything, maybe 10 years ago, like chatbots and get everything, click this and it goes here. This is a completely new territory where it's kind of like a life of its own in some regard. So it will revolutionize every single industry. Every single industry will be. I drive down the street and I see a guy mowing the lawn. And I'm like, it'll be a robot mowing the lawn. I look at everything now and I go, there will be a robot doing that. A plumber comes, I'm like, well, I don't know. Will one of Elon's robots come in and just fix my pipes? Like, I don't know. But in 10 years from now, will parents be telling their kids, go to XYZ college, get your degree, and go get a job in X, and then show up as an intern and work your way up the ladder? Probably not. So I think everybody needs, it's that unknown unknown. There's so much of that unknown unknown. I think everybody needs to take a serious look at how they're building their companies today and forward. I mean, the classic management consulting thing is we say, how old is your company? And you say, oh, I've been around 14 years. You go, great. Let's talk about the next 14 years. Like that's a classic management consulting hack. We've been around business 62 years. Awesome. Let's talk about the next 62 years, right? Well, that was easy in the 80s and in the 90s and the 2000s, but we're in 2025. I can't comfortably say, let's look at the next 100 years, because who knows with this AI. I'm trying to look at the next year out and say, how do I optimize your entire organization using more AI? Because the truth of the matter is your competitors will be doing it. They're going to be doing it faster than you. They're going to invest more money than you are. So they're going to get there quicker than you, or you're going to get there quicker than them. But right now you get to decide. But right now, today, this very moment, like when you get off of this podcast, you now have a choice to make. Are you going to be faster or slower than your competitors?
Who wants it more? Who's working harder? It's a question I ask myself daily. I've heard the influencers out there say, is there a team on the other side of the country, other side of the world that's doing it in a more efficient manner? They're waking up earlier, they're putting in more time. That's what AI allows for me. I do a lot of research and for fun. I can just take a spreadsheet, put it in there, get what would take me, half hour to put together, done in the matter of a few seconds, a minute, and then I can rifle it out.
And with Gen AI, it'll just do that for you because you'll give it its goal and its target task, and you just go to
pushing it.
It just keeps on.
I was reading an article yesterday about an AI hospital in Asia. I'm not supposed to mention countries in Asia, and it's in a prototype stage, but there's basically robots with 40 different doctors, and it's insane. And also children, elementary school, preschool, being taught to use AI overseas as well. And it's wild to think where the world will be 10 years. The work smarter, not harder is something that always sticks with me as well. It's not about, hey, I'm going to use these tools so I could sit back on my couch, as much as I want to be more effective. How do I bring them in? And speaking to being more effective, want to package some actionable insights, some Tim knowledge. There's still knowledge, knowledge, it's changing decades. But right now, Tim knowledge, for anyone who's viewing, listening to this episode, what should they test towards their own growth? Growth is a series of tests, marketing as well, entrepreneurship, there's these mental battles. What should they be putting in place so that they are more successful?
Yeah, I'll give you an analog one that you can test. So I've been journaling for 20 something years, for a very long time. And this morning I was opening up another journal. And I'm not always like so consistent with every single day, but multiple times a week I'll journal. Sometimes it'll be a week or two that I miss, but I'm very, very consistent with it through the long period of time. This morning I was going back to a couple journals and just seeing like what Tim thought in 2018, what Tim thought in 2012, what Tim thought in 2023, right? That exercise is such an analog, slow exercise. If you ever listen to Jim Rohn, he's a big advocate of journaling, but you like know thyself.
Mm-hmm.
Know thyself in a way that is so intimate that every decision you're making isn't reactive. It's coming from a place that's been well thought out. I'm a dedicated Christian. I pray, I journal, I read. And for me, my practice of getting into like who I am and my purpose, it comes from journaling. It comes like, okay, Tim, this is what my journal sound like. All right, Tim, here we go. Like, whose life are we going to change today? Right? What value are we going to add today? How are we going to magnify the glory and purpose that God gave you today? How are we going to make this world a better place? And let's talk about yesterday. How did yesterday go? Like, did we make a change? Cool. Let's write something. So just tracking, knowing thyself in a journal and getting clear on like what you're trying to accomplish in this life, in this world, I would say step one. It's the easiest thing to do. It's analog. It'll add so much value to your life. And then obviously the gratitude that comes along in your journal. So just be like, all right, what are 5 things I'm thankful for today? Today I'm thankful to be on Jason's podcast. Tomorrow I'm thankful for Mother's Day. Like that, whatever it is, just the gratitude, because you're here right now. It's your life. This is what it is. You're not wherever you are trying to be just where you're at right now. So get clear on that, clear on your goals, going back to the identity, the ego, understand why you want what you want, understand how that's tied into the purpose and how you've been created, and then get after it relentlessly.
It's tough to do.
Stuff to
Even
do.
understanding how to want what we want. It's something I very much respect you for, taking that time, being intentional. When I asked Tim how he's doing in the morning, never been better is the most common answer. And it primes you to be more impactful for that day. And the fact that you'll dedicate your time, work with groups, work around projects, around passions, around communities, around ideas that you believe in. What about when it's not working? Optimization, right? I think you taught me 9 out of 10 startups fail in the first year. Those that survive, 9 out of 10 of those will fail the next year. The first 5 years are brutal. We now talk about stories around CEOs that are looking to sell, looking to, build their legacy, their exit plan. If you're not hitting the results, you're not having the impact, you're not seeing the measurable numbers that you want to, how do you pivot? How do you change it up? How do you go back the next morning and do a better job?
I think people stick with the failure far too long. In a world of test optimized scale, you have to be nimble, agile, quick, flexible. If you're with something and it's just not working, another 5 years is not going to make it just work any harder. It's just not. So be flexible, be nimble, be agile, create games that you can play quickly, that you kind of control the rules and you can get in there and you can test this one thing. We're just going to play this game, see how far. We're going to run a new style of newsletter. We're going to put new creative, new offers, new actions, all that kind of stuff. Like play these little mini games. Eventually what will happen is something will catch fire, right? That's the whole DNA mantra of like, we're going to find what starts working, and then we're going to double down, triple down, quadruple down until that thing stops working. And then we're going to find something else. So that to me is like the way to do it versus the old, it's got to be this or nothing. And we're all in. It's like, maybe I'd rather be more flexible and nimble and, get rid of the losers quickly and get on with the winners.
So you figure it out. You're winning. How do you scale? How do you take it to the next level? How do you bring on more market share?
Yeah. Well, in many cases, you got to be prepared to invest. You have to be prepared to invest. So test optimize scale. Scale a lot of times means we're putting our money where our mouth is. If it's working, double down, spend more money. If you think you have an opportunity to bring on more talent because you're going to serve more clients, well, time to start investing. If you need to get another location or you want to buy your competitor or grow through M&A, start having those conversations. Find the capital, find the resources. But you're going to have to grow if you want to grow. And growing is a little scary, but doing those little mini tests kind of hedges your bet because now you see something's working, then you invest, then you invest, then you invest, then you invest. Before you know it, you're Warren Buffett.
Then you get to retire. You're looked at as a
You're
billionaire.
off into the sunset.
Still drive your station wagon, live in your house from the 80s. Tim, you're a wealth of knowledge. Feel like I could ask you questions for the next 4 hours and just barely scratch the surface. I think we've given the audience a lot today. Should begin to wrap here, but excited to see what I said, met you in 2009, what the next 16 years look like. Maybe it's just AI, Tim and Jason talking to each other, creating content. I feel like a TV show host. You're going to be seeing a lot more of this young man here. When you're looking at exits, when you're looking at the world of entrepreneurship, I normally have guests point to their different content funnels. I don't know if you're going to mention everything, but subscribe to Tim's newsletter, check out all the content he's promoting. Tim, where can audiences go to learn more? And what's one final thought you want to leave them with here today?
I would say find me on LinkedIn because LinkedIn's LinkedIn, and leave a note. Say, I saw you on Jason's podcast, and that'd be great. I'd be happy to connect with you. The final note is do good work. Just do good work.
Yes.
Recently published a book called Do Good Work. It's a collection of blogs that I put together really for a younger demographic, someone getting into the workforce, trying to learn the game. It's so important that you show up as your authentic self, whatever you want to define that as. Just you're bringing the best version of yourself every single day to the workforce, and you're doing excellent work to create more value for the world because the world needs you to do that. That's what we need you to do, to produce excellent work. So get out there, get it done.
Get out there, get it done. Whatever you are, be a good one. I think a president said at one point. Tim, thank you so much for the time. This has been a blast, beyond expectations. Want to thank everybody for tuning in. Take Tim up on his offer there, and we'll see you all soon.
Yeah, thanks.
Take care.